So what attracts me about this camera? First of all, I have to say that having a flip screen, that's actually pretty different compared to other cameras. For example, you can flip it like this. Hey guys, my name is Daniel and you're watching Turn Lemons to Lemonade. Today we're going to talk about a camera that is pretty controversial, and I think it's a very good buy for a beginner. So we're going to talk about the Fujifilm X-T100. Is this a good camera for a beginner or not? Let's talk about it and see if it fits your style. So I recently got the Fujifilm X-T100. I actually got it as a bargain in exchange for a motorcycle, so that worked for me. First of all, I have to talk about the build quality, and in the hand it feels pretty nice and premium compared to the CANON M50, for example, which is the camera I'm shooting right now on top camera. And I'm gonna talk about why I choose mostly the Canon cameras in another video probably. If you're interested about that, let me know in the comments, and also subscribe to the channel because we're gonna post a lot of filmmaking content on this channel, so make sure you're subscribed if you wanna see this content. If you don't know who I am, my name is Daniel and I'm a music video director. I mostly shoot music videos, and I'm also a web designer, but mostly my interest lately was doing music videos. I already have around 5 music videos shot, so if you wanna check those out, I'll actually make a playlist on my channel and you can check them in there. I'll probably do a breakdown of the music videos too. So now let's get back to the camera. As I said, in the hand it feels very nice, and I think for the price that you are paying, which is around 500 euro, you're getting a lot of camera. Yeah, it doesn't shoot 4K, but you basically just don't need 4K in today's era. I'm actually shooting all of this in 1080p and upscaling to 4K, and I think for YouTube it's still a very good quality. So what attracts me about this camera? First of all, I have to say that having a flip screen, that's actually pretty different compared to other cameras. For example, you can flip it like this, which the Canon cameras can do. So for example, if you are on the back of the camera and you want to flip it up directly, you can just do that. And this is very nice, especially when you're shooting photography. So when you're shooting photos with this camera, I think it's a very good camera for that. For video, we're going to talk about that in a bit also. But actually, let's talk photography first. From my point of view, this is a very good camera for a street shooter, for family photos, and actually for professional photography also. The most important part about any camera is actually the lens you're putting on it. And for that, we have a lot of selection from Fujifilm, and actually, let me tell you a bit about some of my favorite lenses I have with Fujifilm, even though I don't have any lenses right now because I just got this camera and I actually purchased the 7 Artisan 25 1.8. I had this lens actually 2 times, and I sold it 2 times because I didn't... my focus lately was mostly on video, so I wanted to use the money I had on buying and purchasing gear that will help me in that area mostly. So in that area, the X-T2 and the X-T3, which I had 2 times, actually I had the X-T2 1 time and the X-T3 2 times, and I sold it for both times just because the autofocus was not on par with the Canon cameras I use mostly. Right now I'm shooting with the EOS R, the EOS M and the M50, and I'm using all 3 for these angles, and I have to say that they work very good together because they are all Canon cameras. You have to take into consideration that the EOS M is actually a 10 years camera. It was launched in 2010 or something like that, and I bought it for like $150, which is pennies, and I use it mostly for right now for this side angle, which is pretty nice and looks very good with the 51.8 with the speed booster. But anyway, let's get back to the photography of the X-T100. What I love the most about Fujifilm camera is actually the JPEG profiles. And for that, one of my favorite profiles is the classic chrome profile and the Astia, because it's very good for people. And for that, from my point of view, the X-T100 delivers a lot, even though the sensor is a bit different compared to X Pro 1, X Pro 2, X-T2 and X-T3, but it doesn't really matter. Actually, I mostly shoot RAW and JPEG also, but I mostly shoot RAW and edit the photos. But for that, if you wanna use this camera for street photography, I think it's a very good buy. it's a very compact camera, and you can just throw it around and have it all the time with you in your camera bag. So if your focus is photography, I think it's actually a pretty good camera. I also have this 28 Canon FD lens, which I'm going to use with this, but right now I don't have an adapter for it. I only have the FD to EOS M and the FD to EOS R. But yeah, I'll buy probably another adapter for it. Even though buying the 7 Artisan 25 1.8, there's no point actually in using this lens because it's a 28. However, I'm planning on buying a 51.4 FD because for video, when I'm shooting video, I use these lenses, and I have to say that I like them even more compared to the new lenses because it provides you that vintage look, which the new lenses doesn't really provide, because the new lenses provide you that sharp and crystal clear look, which a lot of filmmakers today and a lot of YouTubers are actually after. However, I'm more of a soft video cinematic look guy, so I'm trying to go after that look. And with the help of these lenses, the Canon FD lenses, I can achieve that look. I have to say that the screen is actually pretty impressive. It works pretty good, and you can use it also for touch, and you can use it also to take a photo. However, the most useful for me would be to use the touch screen to set the focus where I want it, and for that it's pretty good. I have to say again, compared to the Canon cameras, I don't think that there is any camera that comes even close to the implementation of the touchscreen and the overall menu functionality of the Canon cameras, because I really like the fact that there is very simple, and the usability of the camera is very good, and the user experience, and you don't have to go through menus and lose your way. So if you're a beginner videographer or photographer, it will be much easier for you to use a Canon camera because the menus are very simple. However, Fujifilm is also improving in this area, even though in the last years they didn't have the best menus. The menus are pretty simple and easy to follow, and you can find everything that you need. You actually have a lot of options, even though you can choose the shutter type, mechanical shutter or electronic shutter, and with that you can set this camera to be dead silent. So if you're shooting street photography, this will be a great buy for you. Again, this is a preferential thing because I'm used with the Canon cameras, and I'm also noticed that they upgraded this in the X-T4. But for example, if you're a hybrid shooter and you're shooting videos and photo too, it's much better to have the menus separated compared to have the same menu, which it will be a bit frustrating to navigate the menus. Yeah, the menu is pretty simple, and you can find everything you need in there. The quality, as I said, is the buttons feels a bit flimsy compared to the X-T3 and X-T4, for example. However, I have to say that it's very easy to navigate to the controls. Let's take a look at the top. Let's take a look at the top and see what we have in here. So we have the mode dial in here. You can set to manual, aperture, shutter speed, priority, whatever. So this is how the camera looks. One good thing is that you can have a flip screen. However, as I said, this camera, I wouldn't use it for video, for example. Yes, you can use it for shooting video with it. However, it's not the best option. From my point of view, the M50 is much better option if you're looking to shoot video and that is your main focus. However, for photography, I think it's a really great buy. It looks very good and sexy, and even as an accessory, because it's not that expensive, you can use it as an accessory. However, it's much better compared to the phone camera. So if you're trying to go into photography and trying to learn photography, this has a lot of mode dials. You can this has a lot of modes even for beginners. For example, you can use the SR mode, which is basically like an automated mode, something like that. You can use the program mode, you can use the aperture mode, and you can basically just set the aperture, and the camera will set everything else automatically. And the another thing is that this camera has a lot of dials. So for example, you have these dials, which is one which I use for aperture. You have this dial in here, which I use mostly for shutter speed, and you also have a programmable dial in here on top, which I will use for ISO. And with that, you can basically control the triangle of exposure perfectly with this camera. I have to say, I don't think this camera is made of metal. I don't actually know. Another thing is that you have a flash also. So if you're using, for example, a flash, you can use this Not exactly what I recommend to use the on-camera flash, but if the light is very low, you can use this one also. The sensor on this camera is APS-C. It's a APS-C sensor, it's not a full frame. However, for photography, the Fujifilm is really a great camera. I'm going to stick on this one, the 7R2025 1.8, and just use it as my daily camera, as my family camera, and take it all over the place with me, because it's very small and compact. For example, if you see, it's even more compact than my iPhone. My iPhone is even bigger than this one. Yeah, I will have my iPhone all the time with me, of course, but this camera is going to produce a lot better quality, especially for Instagram, for example, compared to the phone I'm using. I have to say that I always had a thing for Fujifilm cameras, just because I'm a designer and I love well thought designs and things that look very good. And I have to say that this camera, compared to the M50, for example, looks a lot more better from my point of view, and it's not very ergonomic. The grip is not very good. However, it's a very stylish camera. That's what I can tell you about it. And yeah, this is why I think the X-T100 is a really great buy for a beginner. And in the next video, I'm probably gonna talk about the Canon M50 and why I think this is currently one of the best buy you can have, especially because you can buy it like used for $300 or something like that. And it's a very good camera for a content creator. Now let's talk about video also a bit. This camera can actually shoot in 4K, but I wouldn't say it can shoot in 4K. Yeah, it can shoot a time-lapse in 4K because it shoots in 4K in 50 frames per second, which is basically not useful in any way. It also shoots in 1080p 60 frames per second and 24 frames per second, which will probably mostly use anyway. If I'm going to use this camera to shoot video with, I will probably use it with manual focus all the time, because the autofocus is not that great compared to the X-T2 or X-T3, for example. This has a different focusing system. Only for that reason, I think it's not a great option for video shooters. Yeah, it's okay for beginners if you're starting a YouTube channel, but for that I recommend the Canon M50 compared to this one. You can actually get a picture profile which is pretty neutral, which is the Provia profile, which is pretty neutral. And actually, one thing I have to say about Fujifilm cameras and Canon cameras is that they work very good together. So if you're shooting, for example, a Canon and a Fuji, you can combine them pretty good if you know a bit of color grading tips. And I used this, for example, the EOS M in an event, which I'm going to show you a bit of shots right now. I shot a video event in Canada, in Toronto, and in there I used the X-T2, and actually I used the X-T3 with the 10-18, and for that I used the Canon EOS M with the 10-18, which was set mostly on a gimbal, and I used that to take some wide shots of the environment. And I also used the X-T3 with the 50mm 1.8 adapted to the X-T3, and also with the 23 f2. And I shot basically the whole event with that combination. I think this is a pretty good buy if you're a beginner and you're into photography. I don't think actually it feels very good in my hands, and I will highly recommend this camera as a beginner photography. And not only that, because I'm not a beginner, I mean I'm intermediate to advanced. I think so. I consider myself like that. But I think this is a very good camera for that. Okay guys, I think this is enough for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content about filmmaking and gear and stuff like that. By the way, I also put links if you want to check those out. And if you have any comments about the camera, if you want to ask me anything else, let me know in the comments. That's about it. Have a good day, guys.